Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Nationals podcast. Today it is the 4th of May, 2022. Today's show is brought to you all by Blue Nile. It's not too late to get something for Mother's Day. Check out fine jewelry at BlueNile.com today. On the show, the Nationals, the offense, it stays red hot in what was a great night, not just for the Nationals, but for all of DC sports. The Washington Capitals get themselves a win as well. So we'll just talk about a great night in DC sports that was capped off by a Nationals 10-2 win in Colorado against the Rockies. That's coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, hello everybody, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Nationals podcast. It is the 4th of May, so may the 4th be with you, 2022. You guys can find me on Twitter at @JoshNeighbors_. You guys can find the show at @LO_Nationals. So what we'll do here is we'll talk about the Nationals' first game in their series against the Rockies, which they won 10-2. We'll then look at the rest of the games in the series. The next show will be after tomorrow's game because it's a day game. Just makes it easier to talk about two games in one when we have the final two of the series as they usually come in midweek form. So we'll have the final two games of the series, talk about that, and then preview the Angels series coming up this weekend. That'll be coming later in the week. But on today's show, we'll discuss the Nationals 10, Rockies 2. As we normally do, we got to check the standings every single day before we get going, not just to see where the Nationals are in the playoff race, but just to give us a barometer of how things are going right now. The Nationals are in last place in the National League East with a 9-16 record. They're 8.5 games back of the New York Mets, who have accrued a 4.5 game lead over the Marlins, who are 12-11. The Nats are 4 back of them. The Phillies are 11-13. The Nats are 2.5 back of them. And the Braves are 11-15. The Nats are just a game and a half back of the Atlanta Braves. The Nationals have won 2 games in a row. They've lost 7 of their last 10, but they have won 3 of their last 4. Now the Nats are 3-11 at home this year, but they are 6-5 on the road. So there is some positivity. This team has gone away from home. Just want to mention that before we really get going and talk about the game. I had said this after the Nationals had that losing streak. I think getting out on the road was really positive for this team. I think they just needed it after that long homestand where things were clearly not going right for them. They lost those 2 games to the Diamondbacks. Then they lost 3 to the Giants and 3 to the Marlins, put it all together. And they lost 8 straight games. All of those were at home. Excuse me. They were 2-8 in their homestand, their most recent homestand following that Pittsburgh Pirates series. So the Nationals, I just thought getting on the road was going to be a positive thing for them. And it has to start things off. We had mentioned this series over the course of the weekend that they had with the Giants. But we're talking about a team that, in the games previous, during that losing streak, they scored 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2. That's what they scored in their 10-game losing streak. Once again, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2. I mean, the offense was horrible. They start off the first game with a 14-4 win on the road, 9-3 loss, but they did a good job. I mean, getting hits in that game. They just didn't drive anybody in a 9-3 loss. You finish up on Sunday and you go out there and you put up 11 runs, and the Nationals 10 runs against the Rockies. That means 3 of their last 4 games they've scored at least 10 runs, and the pitching has been pretty solid too. So we're going to talk about this particular game here. First, quick word from our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you all by Blue Nile. Mother's Day is this coming weekend, but it's not too late to go and get something from Blue Nile. It's something special that you'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. Locked On listeners get $50 off a $500 purchase That's a podcast exclusive for Mother's Day. Use promo code Locked On. That's LOCKEDON, Locked On, when you guys go to BlueNile.com. And when you guys do that, you get $50 off a $500 purchase or more. They'll take care of the shipping and the handling, all that kind of stuff as well. It's stress-free. It'll show up in a discreet package as well. So if you live with that special someone, they're not going to know, oh, hey, my jewelry from Blue Nile is here. So make sure you guys go to BlueNile.com today. Use promo code Locked On, LOCKEDON, Locked On. All right, Nationals 10, Rockies 2. What was the big story of the game here? Well, you guys know me. I'm a pitching guy. I think I always start with the pitching. The offense, yes, big story. But to me, let's talk about Erick Fedde. 7 innings, 6 hits, 1 run. It was earned, 2 walks, and 3 Ks. He threw 102 pitches. This was Erick Fedde's best start of the year. We talked about his first 2 starts of the season. 5 innings, 2 runs against the Mets, 5 innings, 2 runs against Pittsburgh. They were decent starts, but he wasn't going that deep. Then he gets rocked by Arizona, only can go 4 2/3 on 91 pitches against the Marlins. Yes, it was pretty decent, but still not enough length. This was one of those games. It just seems like when the Nats go out west, Fedde's had some good games. You'll think about last year, pitched really well against Arizona on the road. That was one of his best games of the year. Well, the best game so far of his young season for him. In his 5th start was 7 innings, 6 hits, 1 run. It was earned, 2 walks, 3 Ks. Once again, 102 pitches. The Nationals were in a great position once he left the game, and also keeping the bullpen pretty fresh too, which we know is a challenge for this Nationals group. So all around, when you talk about the night that Erick Fedde had, it was off to a bit of a rough start. There were guys on, there was some traffic. It was a 20-pitch first inning, and so you're thinking, oh no, here we go. It's another Erick Fedde start where he is, he is, putting guys on, and eventually the dam's going to break, and he's going to put the Nationals in a bad position. No, he recovered pretty well. The 1 run that was scored was off a hard hit ball to third base that Maikel Franco was really close turning 2 on, and a spectacular snag, but only allowed 1 run. Defense, I thought, played well behind him. And so this was a start. I say this to a lot of the guys, but like this is one of those quality starts. You're like, okay, give me 75% of this each time out, 5 in 5 2/3 or 6 2/3, whatever it is. This is a really strong start. This is what the Nationals need, especially on the road, for their pitching to continue to show up. And he showed up in a place that we know it's really difficult to. Coors Field is not an easy place to go and, pitch really well in. There's a reason why top-end pitching does not like to go to places, they don't usually sign long-term contracts with places like Colorado. And look, the team with the best batting average in the National League right now, it's the Colorado Rockies. Actually, in all of the league right now, it's Colorado Rockies. You'll be interested to know, as bad as the Nationals offense has been, their team batting average is 5th in the league, which is wild to me. I think the last few days have also really helped them out from that standpoint. But yeah, I mean, think about one of the best offenses in the league, and Fedde did a great job cooling those bats off. 6 hits, yeah, that's a decent amount, but he didn't allow too many runs. And so I think we focus so much on pitching. Erick Fedde right now is not trying to be a Max Scherzer. He's not trying to be even Josiah Gray, right? Erick Fedde right now is trying to cement his role as a back-end starter for maybe not just the Nationals, but another team down the road, but especially the Nats right now. The Nats are in the process of rebuilding a rotation. Ideally, they want Steven Strasburg back. Ideally, they want Patrick Corbin to pitch as he did in his last outing. Ideally, they want Josiah Gray there as well. Ideally, they want Joe Ross in the mix right now once he comes back to be the Joe Ross from last year. And, ideally for Erick Fedde, at least, he'd be a 5th guy in all of that and just be solid like he was, more than solid last night, but just that kind of performance more often. I mean, there is a real opportunity for him once again here in Washington right now because there is such a need for starting pitching to cement that. Now, I know Cade Cavalli is on the come up, but here's the thing, guys. think about rotations like this. You have 5 guys in mind, right? We always have 5 guys in mind. Oh my God. The New York Mets have, they've got Jacob deGrom. They've got Max Scherzer. They've got Taijuan Walker and Carlos Carrasco and Tyler McGill and David Peterson. They've got all of these guys. Well, what normally happens is there are injuries, especially to pitching. You rarely have the 5 ideal guys that you thought you were going to have pitching. Now, the Nationals, on their front, don't have a ton of depth, but you rarely are going to have all 5 of those guys rearing and ready to go. Somebody is usually going to get injured in some way, shape, or form. And so that's why it's important to have a 6th guy, a guy ready to go. Erick Fedde, the last 2 seasons, in my opinion, well, and also the Nets have Anibal Sanchez, but I don't really count him as that's not desired outcome to have him in the rotation necessarily. Dave Martinez's plan might be that, but I just think in my perfect world, it's not really the case. So kind of thinking about it like from that perspective, Erick Fedde probably wasn't supposed to be in the rotation the last 2 years and has ended up in the rotation the last 2 years and has really held down a spot there. Like the one thing you can't say about Erick Fedde is like he's not out there pretty often. This is a guy that I know, despite the inconsistencies, he's been out there a lot. The last year throws 133 innings, and this year he's been available so far. And sometimes for a team like the Nationals, the best ability is availability, as they say. So the Nationals are enjoying having Erick Fedde be able to go every 5 days. They'd like to get more starts like that, or in that neighborhood. Even if the game was closer, it would have been, a competitive start at that. All right, one more quick word from our sponsors, then we'll talk about some offense. The Nationals brought the sticks out last night in Colorado. Teams love to do that, but Colorado doesn't lose a lot of games at home. Talk about that in a second. First off, today's show was brought to you by Built Bar. Go to Built.com today. That's Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. They've got flavors like banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, and so many more. They are delicious. They are good. They taste like candy bar, but they're much better for you than a candy bar. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Built bars are where it is at. Go to Built.com today. That's Built.com, promo code LOCK15. LOCKED15 LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Doing a little sparkling water this morning to wet the palate. All right, the Nationals offense. They came to play, just like the Miz theme song. I came to play. The Nationals offense did so. 10 runs last night against one of the better pitchers in that Rockies rotation, German Marquez. And they did it because they were driving guys in scoring position. This is always the theme of the team. One team didn't, one team did. Now, maybe if the Rockies did, it probably would have been as close. Nationals were 5 for 13 in those situations. Bell 1 for 2, Escobar 1 for 2, Yadiel Hernandez 1 for 1, Ruiz 2 for 3 last night in those positions. What stood out? Juan Soto goes 1 for 5, but hits a towering home run. And look, he's 1 for 5 is not excellent for him, but you're starting to see the offense come around for him just a bit. He's still hitting 258 with a 405 on base as the computer plays. And so I think last night you're seeing the offense come around just a bit, but you're also seeing the struggles. That K was very un-Juan Soto-like. What you're also seeing is Josh Bell's at his peak right now. That's a guy that at this point in time, it's pretty safe to say he's playing his best baseball when it comes to, at the dish, how things are going for him. 3 for 5 last night, 3 runs driven in. Now, does have a 2 Ks, but I like the fact he's being aggressive, right? I mean, he's in that 3 spot to generate offense, and he's been generating offense all year. He's top 5 in the NL in terms of average, and he has been so strong this year. Who else has been strong? Yadiel Hernandez. We talked about it yesterday with Matt Wyrick. Look, the guy is hitting 362, 387 on base, 534 slugging. This guy's here to hit. That's what he does. 3 for 5 with 2 runs driven in this game. This is a guy that's coming to the plate. It's coming to play. And that's why I think he's an asset for the Nationals, maybe when it comes to the trade deadline, because this is a guy, he's a run driver. This guy is scoring runs for the Nationals out here. Like, he is in positions to drive in runs, and he's just flat out doing it. 34 years old. I know, he's we've talked about that age, but look, he's already got 14 runs driven in this year in just 16 games that he's been in. So, he's done a great job giving the Nats an offensive lift. And 58 ABs, you take that every single time, 21 hits, once again, hitting 362. He's getting the job done. He's not up there to walk. He's up there to create some offense. And I think that's a valuable asset, once again, not just for the Nats, but could be for some other teams and could yield the Nats some good return, maybe come trade deadline time. Another guy who's been so solid and kind of in the there's guys who are in they're Nats category. That's your Josiah Grays, your K-Barrett Ruizes, your Juan Sotos, hopefully, continuing moving forward. And they're the guys who are on the, not the block, but, are guys that are not for sure Nationals. Cesar Hernandez, who's been pretty good so far this season. I would put Maikel Franco and Yadiel Hernandez in that. Maikel Franco goes 2 for 4 last night. He's playing some good defense at times as well, playing a good third base, and he's playing at the level right now, folks, that is encouraging, because when Carter Kieboom makes his return, and he should get that shot because the Nationals have so much invested in him, Maikel Franco is setting a bar. I've been saying this all season. Maikel Franco is setting a bar right now that is attainable for a guy like Carter Kieboom, but it's a high enough quality of play where it's gonna force him to play well. It's gonna force Carter Kieboom to play well and maintain that spot. The Nationals, in an ideal world, get good play from Maikel Franco, maybe could flip him for prospect depth, and then get to have Carter Kieboom at third. But it's nice to have a contingency, and maybe he's a guy that moving forward wants to continue being a Nat, and the Nats want to have him moving forward, maybe on a cheaper-ish deal. So I think there's encouraging signs there for a guy who's put together a pretty good first start of the season. K-Barrett Ruiz remains hot and cold. I'm totally fine with that. 3 for 4 last night, just 23 years old. And so Ruiz goes through streaks, it feels like, it fits and starts, if you will, right? He had a pretty rough stretch there. Last 3 or 4 games, at a difficult kind of ending. He was at an 0 for 10 streak, between the last 2 Miami games, the first San Francisco game that he played, but goes 1 for 4 in the second game, gets 3 hits last night. This is a guy that, multi-hit games are kind of his thing. At this point in time, counting it up, he's got 8 multi-hit games this year. He's got 16 hits on the year. So it really is coming in fits and starts for him. And consistency is a big thing, but he's getting the ABs to do so. Hopefully, maybe the power does come along at some point in time. So I think there's a lot of encouraging signs from last night's 10-2 win. Once again, the Nationals have won 3 of their last 4. And Alcides Escobar has been hitting well too. Take from that what you will. And also Victor Robles didn't get a hit last night, but drove in a run. This offense is starting to come around. The key is, can you carry it forward? Can you maintain it? Can you keep doing it? And this version of the Nationals right now, once again, long term, they're not going to win games. But they've lost close and they've won big, which I think is encouraging. And also, we're singling out, this is a bad team. It's a bad team, generally speaking. Not playing bad baseball, bad team. Once again, I will say this ad nauseum all year long. We're searching for players right now that can be flipped and turned into prospect depth or get the Nationals, whatever. We're also looking for guys that could potentially be a part of this team in a variety of roles later on down the line. That's what we're searching for right now. So Nationals win 10-2. Let's set up the games in the rest of the series. The Nationals will go at it again with the Rockies tonight. This one's at 8:40 Eastern time. It'll be Patrick Corbin against Austin Gomber. So we'll see, can Patrick Corbin build off the good start in a difficult environment? And then in the final game of this series, Aaron Sanchez will be on the mound for the Nationals, and he'll be going up against Antonio Centinela, great Italian name. Venezuelan, obviously, but it'd be a great Italian name if it was Italian. So that's your pitching matchup. 8:40 and then 3:10. It's a day game. That'll be a getaway day for the Nationals because they have a 3-game set coming up with the Angels over the course of the weekend before they get back home next week to play the Mets. So that's what's coming up for them. And also, got to shout out the Washington Capitals last night. I was a little worried early in the first period. I was really worried. They scored the goal. They gave up the goal the other way. And I'm like, wow, the Capitals had 12 penalty minutes. They were on the power play, whatever it was, 8 minutes of that first period, however long it was. And they only got one goal out of it, even including a 5-on-3, which they didn't score on. And they scored at the end of the second power play. And so, I was really concerned to go down 2-1. I was like, oh no. And they just seemed to flip the game. Even though Tom Wilson too, they flipped the game last night and were able to go out there and get a win. Make sure you guys check out Locked On Capitals too, for all of that coverage. And we'll probably have those guys on here pretty soon too, just to touch on that, support the squad. I'm not sure if you guys saw it. There was a great little interaction between the Nationals and the Capitals on Twitter last night. It's just like a great night type thing. So I thought that was fun. And playoff hockey is nothing like it. Capitals get home ice back. And the good news is, they'll return home with at least the series tied. So that's excellent. They can steal one more. All right, that will do it for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow to recap the final 2 games of this series. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at @LO_Nationals. Follow me at @JoshNeighbors_. Find the show wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. Till next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.